Thank you, Rachel. We left off with the story of the knife of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. I'm handing around the paper handout and then I'll share my screen in a moment. Oh, there's the book. Richard, you have the.
I made an acquisition.
It's good. It's good. It was, I'm sure, well worth it. Then you'll get to see which ones I skipped. There's just only so many weeks in our year.
I have to tell you, Raquel, that you were fabulous at the Megillah reading Monday night.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it so much. It was great.
Do you know the original sketch from Saturday Night Live? It's a Mike Myers character, Linda Richmond. And do you guys not know that?
Oh, Linda Richmond.
Okay, so some people didn't
Based
know
on his
that. And it's still based on, I thought it's it's his mother-in-law?
Based on his mother-in-law.
Based on his mother-in-law, Linda Richmond. So I do this character that I did last quarter, and I brought her back. And some people don't know the original, so they think I've made her up. No, she exists. So go home and Google video, like go to YouTube and search videos of Linda Richmond, Mike Myers, and Saturday Night Live, whatever.
Richmond?
Linda. Just Linda Richmond, Saturday Night Live. And then you'll see he goes, "Welcome to Coffee Talk." I even saw where he showed up like that at a Barbra Streisand concert. It was delightful. Anyway, there's so much more that I can do with that. I feel like she has to come back every.
Well, next forum.
Yeah, maybe.
I still think you should do the sermon in that voice. The attention would be rapt.
I don't know if I could hold up for a whole.
Of course you could. Discuss with Adam.
Talk amongst yourselves.
With Adam. Talk with Adam.
All right, here we are. Ruth Calderon, the Talmud. We had been thinking about this Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi who can thwart death, who can sit among the lepers. Actually, she'll call them the lepers. They weren't in the original text. It was people stricken with Ra'atan. But here she kind of makes it, I think, more colloquial and more easy to just refer to simply by saying leprosy. But
I still think he's pushing limits.
So he's pushing limits. So what we're going to do is today we're going to look at Ruth Calderon's version of this story. But before we do that, I will share my screen and we will read the original through one quick time. Just give it a moment to make sure everyone can see. Okay. So now Michael sees what it looks like on this end in the room.
That's awfully small. When I see it on the screen, it's much bigger than that.
Well, it's big on the screen, but we just shrink it down so we can see all the faces. Yeah.
I was going to say, I couldn't read that.
Yeah, it's big on my screen. And by the way, when I was gloating last week about how I teach hybrid classes and no one else teaches hybrid classes, it takes 3 of us to run a hybrid class. I couldn't do it without Louis and without Rachel, who's sitting in her office, making sure everything works on her end. So I shouldn't be so gloating without them. I'd be nothing. Okay, we're a team, good team. And that way we get all of our folks here on the screen. It's wonderful to have you all. So here's the summary to remind ourselves the story, and then we'll jump into the creative read of it. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi clung to the lepers and studied Torah. How did he interpret the verse, "A loving doe, a graceful mountain goat"? If the Torah graces those who learn it, will it not also protect me? So it sets up this idea that he's somewhere that no one else will go, and he hasn't caught. Well, here it's leprosy. If the Torah, when he was about to die, meaning he's about to die a natural death, the angel of death was told, "Go and do Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi's will. Let him die however he chooses." And so the angel of death went and appeared before him. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said to him, "Show me my place in the world to come." He said, "Surely." Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said to him, "Give me your knife, lest I be frightened by it along the way." He says to the angel of death. And the angel of death gives him the knife. We talked about him symbolically having power over death. When they got there, to the edge of heaven, right, to the wall. He lifted him up and showed him over the wall, showed him his place in the world to come. That's where you're going to be. There's your apartment. He said to him, lift me up a bit more. He lifted him up, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi jumped and fell over to the other side. The angel of death, in desperation, grabbed him by the corner of his garment. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said to him, I swear I won't leave this place. So really defying death. The Holy One, blessed be, he said, if Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi ever asked to have one of his vows nullified, then he must return. If not, then he need not return. Implication here, he doesn't return, because then the angel of death, seeing that he's staying there, says, okay, give me back my knife. So the text implies he never had to nullify a vow. He is so righteous, he keeps his word, and he can go right into heaven. Angel of death says, return my knife. He did not return it. A voice from above, a bat Kohl, called out, give it to him, because without it, people cannot die. And of course, we know he did give it to him because people keep dying. Okay. Here we go. Comments before we start. So we talked about this idea of death and the idea of being with the untouchables, giving him this extreme level of righteousness and even power over death. So she brings us right into the world of the lepers. And she extends this theme quite a lot. The story in the Talmud said that he used to study Torah with the lepers. So here we hear more about it. It's a little bit, well, okay, you'll see. She's painting the scene. The lepers were sitting at the entrance to the bathhouse. Some were scratching themselves with their fingernails or pottery shards or clumps of earth they had found. Groups of children would come stare at them and then run away, excited and terrified by their ugliness. They would linger beside one old man who used to expose a hole in the skin of his leg to await the mercy of passersby. Okay, so we've already heard about how other people respond. Oh yeah, Michael, you're not used to having to flip pages. Okay. It was impossible to know whom the terrible disease would strike, and there were many rumors about how to avoid contagion. Again, we talked a bit about how we all felt at the beginning of COVID and how we really didn't know what did we need to do and how many times did we have to wash our groceries and how close could you get to the person that you're walking by on the street? Could you take your mask off when you're outdoors? I mean, I remember that question. Like if you're outdoors, but you're near people, but within 6 feet, like we just didn't know. So we lived like the ancients for just a little while there. They didn't know. Most of the lepers were beggars because of course they can't make a living, right? Including one who came from far away. But even in the newer neighborhoods where the wealthiest families lived, there were people with suspicious open wounds. So it can strike anyone.
It's indiscriminate.
Yes, thank you. That's the word.
I knew, I
It's
saw you.
indiscriminate. And yet, if you're a wealthy one, you just kind of live with your open wound. You don't tell anyone that this might be a communicable disease. No one dared approach the infected. And in the synagogue, they used to quote Rabbi Yochanan, who said that one should even stay away from the flies that had come near them. So that in the Talmud, right before that story. So she's weaving that in, again, setting the scene.
Oh, good.
Becky, we're glad you joined us.
Oh,
Those who, not to call you out.
Hey,
It's okay.
Becky.
She'd rather
Yeah.
just.
I just came back from my Purim Suda.
Oh, Purim Sameach. Happy
You
Purim.
said Purim in Israel.
Of course. Well, parts of Israel. Yes, yes. Those who frequented the bathhouse left red-faced and perfumed with the scent of almond and rose soap. They rushed past the horrific display, concerned to avoid infection. Many would toss a coin into a jar as they passed, reminding themselves, okay, so why are they tossing a coin in a jar? Because tzedakah tatzil mima, that this will be their protection, their immunity. But it does imply, she's bringing this in, because it also implies something about the way Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi avoids death through his extreme charitable nature. So
Interesting.
it's very nice that she does that, but she makes it about the others who are, oh my gosh, I maybe I got too close to them. Here's a coin or two to protect me. Righteous women would bring bread or stew to the lepers once or twice a week, but of the sages, only Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi would come close enough to sit among them. So here he is. Now we've met our hero. This is his routine. Ben Levi would come to the synagogue at sunrise for the morning prayers, and afterward he would return to the street and sit on a mat next to the entrance to the bathhouse, between the lepers and the shady alley where lumps of soap and drying clothes were distributed. The bath attendant, a cheerful, rotund man, knew when to expect Ben Levi and would prepare him a hot drink. He's not doing that for the lepers. Shortly thereafter, the sound of his learning could be heard, calming the sleepy sick who were still wrapped in filthy blankets like giant cocoons. When they awoke to his chanting, they would file out one by one to greet the new day. So he's like the
Pied Piper.
rooster in the morning,
Oh.
and yes, then they follow him out. Ben Levi would learn until noon. So this is his morning job. And then he'll take a break, right? Then he will go return to the study house to join the small circle of sages in prayer. In the afternoon, until just before evening, he could again be found among the lepers, learning and reviewing, sometime answering passersby with words of Torah. I'm thinking about how they receive him when he goes back into the Beit Midrash for Mincha there in between. They're not so
Give him wide
thrilled.
berth.
Yeah, stand back.
Yeah.
We know where he's been. Becky, I see you're saying something, but you're muted, so you have to unmute.
Right. There were two people in the modern world who did that. One was Reb Aryeh Levine, who used to go visit the lepers, and the other one was Princess Diana.
Okay, so we talked actually last week, and I know you weren't able to be here, but we talked last week about Princess Diana and about Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
And some people felt that Princess Diana was like very media hyped, and that I mean, I don't know, that was an opinion that was in the room. But yes, we had modern day heroes like this, and probably many that we don't even know about.
Yeah, probably don't know. But those are the ones that come to mind.
Aryeh Levin was known. That's right. Thank you. So he was the Tzaddik of Yerushalayim.
Right.
People visit the sick, and
Stable.
he was mid 20th century. Was he pre or post the state of Israel? He spanned that time.
Yeah, of course. He was the one that discovered the Lamed Hay.
The what?
He was the one that gave the names of the 35 people that were killed on the way to Gush Etzion when they had no idea who they were, and some of them had the same names, and he opened up the Tanakh, and he was the one that discovered the 35 names.
Yes, through this sort of prophetic
Right.
process.
Voodoo.
Yeah. Okay, so people would say to him, "Aren't you afraid of getting sick?" They would wonder. And his wife would cry out angrily, "Aren't you afraid of dying?" He would smile at her and respond by quoting the verse. So this is how she weaves in this verse. She has him saying it to his wife, who's worried for him. The verse is, "A loving doe, a graceful mountain goat," which he would then interpret, "If Torah has graced me such that you agreed to be my wife, will Torah not also save me from illness?" Yes, very romantic.
Once again, he's taking chances.
Yeah, but he's saying that things have turned out so well for me so far. Look, I'm here with you, my dear wife.
Dear as a
And-
deep.
yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's very
Yeah,
charming.
it
That she
is.
said she. All right, so now we've set up the scene. We've set up who he is and who he is among the lepers. And now we're going to meet the angel of death. Are we ready? I just want to pause and see if there's anyone else in the Zoom room. Were there any Chats? No chats.
What is it, the quote that he does, the loving doe, a graceful mountain goat? What's the background to that connects with Torah? Or,
Why that pasuk?
yeah, there's nothing in the pursuit that tells
So
you.
it's, 1 second, I'm going back to my, sorry, I stopped the screen share for a second.
God, it sounds like Proverbs.
Proverbs 5:19.
Yeah.
Right, but what is it about
to,
that, those words that reminds him, is Torah a loving doe, a graceful
the
mountain?
Yeah, Proverbs, no,
in Proverbs?
where is it?
What is the connection there?
He says, if the Torah graces those who learn it, will it not also protect me?
Yeah.
And therein lies the seed of the story.
But what is it
Oh,
about a
this
loving
is actually,
doe?
oh my gosh, okay, this is where it gets basic. I didn't know the full, they always teach you this, you have to look up the original
Yeah.
Yeah,
pasuk in the context. I'm gonna,
It's probably Shira Shirim. It sounds like Shira Shirim.
so it's Mishle,
Oh, it's
but
Mishlei.
listen to these verses in Proverbs around this text. So chapter 5, verse 19. It's here, I'll go a little bit back. Soon I was in trouble. Okay. Drink water from your cistern, running water from your well. A spring will gush forth in streams in the public squares. Let your fountain be blessed. Find joy in the wife of your youth.
Hmm.
And then this verse, a loving doe, ayelet
Mhm.
ahavim, v'ya'alat chen, and a graceful mountain goat is dadeha, yeravucha b'chol eight. Let her breast satisfy you at all times. Ve'ahavata tishge tamid, be infatuated with love of her always. I'm reading from the JPS translation that's on Safaria. It sounds like it should be in Shira Shirim.
yeah,
It's Song
it
of
does sound
Songs.
Shira Shirim.
Why should you be, and then it goes on, why should you be infatuated with a forbidden woman, of an alien woman, and stay basically righteous in the eyes of God, Don't be wicked. So it's about righteousness, but it is about love and companionship and romance and lust and all those
beautiful.
things of Shira Shirim stuck right here in Proverbs. So thank you, Ruth Calderon, for making that part of the conversation between these two spouses. That, yeah, go ahead.
I just
Julia.
want to add a PS to this. A loving doe, a graceful mountain goat. I mean, if you think of a mountain goat and you watch them climb, it's an impossible climb. And yet
Yes, it's
they
incredible.
face danger, but they inherently have the ability to navigate. So
Like
this
he
is-
does.
Exactly. So this is what I think is
Great,
the link.
great. I love that. And thank you, Richard, for slowing us down enough to read that. Okay. So good. I'm gonna share my screen again so that our friends online can see.
You see the reference? I saw you 10-2.
So she cites it in the original.
Oh,
there.
519.
Yeah, exactly, not in her revised version. Okay. When it came time for Ben Levi to die, the authorities said, the authorities.
Mhm.
It's they, because it's a voiceless they in the story.
Can we read that to me,
So,
God?
It's the heavenly systems.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, it all comes down to God, but God has a whole kind of society up there.
The heavenly
Oh.
Supreme Court.
I mean, really, there's a court, there's a
Entourage.
a Beit Mikdash Shel Mala, like there's a whole civilization up there, you could imagine. So when it came time for him to die, they say to the angel of death, go do his will, give him an easy death, whatever he wants, let him choose. The angel of death knew from experience that escorting sages to their deaths, whether they were still in their prime or had reached ripe old age, was not a difficult task. So I think this is actually a really nice and a very important aside. Sometimes righteous people die in their prime. It doesn't mean they're not righteous. This is the mission that the angel of death has sometimes. Sometimes they're in their prime, sometimes they're at a ripe old age. And I love that she leaves that person that person's righteousness is not challenged, because elsewhere in rabbinic theology, it is challenged. If you died young, you must have done something wrong. You must have deserved that in the rabbinic theology, but she's not giving that voice. So the angel of death goes to a sage at whatever age he's been assigned. And it's not hard because sages were prepared to die. They were not shocked and startled by his arrival like other men. Like they're always thinking about the end of their lives, or they're always cultivating things outside of the material world. So they're not so attached. With sages, the angel of death was spared the routine crying and pleading, routine, right? And paralyzed looks of those not ready to depart from the world. Perhaps the little pride they had countered the fear of death, overcoming that momentary pain when the soul escapes the body. So they're not wimps, the sages. They have enough pride to say, okay, I can do this, I can overcome this, I am ready. Perhaps they were consoled by the fact that the Torah they had learned in their lifetimes would secure them a place in heaven. In other words, they know where they're going to. So they're confident and they have nothing to fear. It's the people who haven't cultivated good deeds in Torah in this world that are afraid of death. In any case, so this is all the angel of death kind of ruminating on this. Well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Regardless, the angel of death tended to interact politely with sages as if conversing with equals. So she's already set this up. He's about to meet his equal. This time, the angel of death chose to come dressed like a beggar who knocks on doors and stands with open palms. This was one of his favorite costumes for the task of escorting humans to their death. I mean, why do you think she's doing this? The angel of death
Well,
gets,
it's really tongue in
gets an
cheek,
assignment.
reflecting the whole life of Ben Levy also. There he was going amongst beggars, so it was.
oh, he becomes a beggar. Oh,
No,
maybe-
no, it was a place that he was accustomed to and would be comfortable with.
okay, that's what he chose. I mean, I think the angel of death is punching in the clock and trying to make this like not such a ho-hum day. Which role should I choose this time? Okay, beggar, so it will be beggar. I like that one.
Well, also it shows the person on the receiving end, what's your response when you meet somebody of lowly stature?
Yes,
Do you accord them
there's sort of a tact
compassion
there.
or are you
Uh-huh.
dismissive?
So I think there's also something going on here with, for the individual, this is the biggest day of his or her life. But for the heavenly courts or the angel of death, like this happens every day. People are born, people pass on. This is how the world works. And we're so attached, of course we are. And this is our whole world. There's something about giving it like a God perspective here by having him go in for his day of work. I just find it so interesting. All right, so this time the angel of death had chosen with open palms, one of his favorite costumes. The order he had received, so he has an order, but he's given some leeway in terms of what he dresses as and how he does it. But the order he had received to act in accordance with Ben Levi's will deprived him of the little authority he had. I mean, he has very few choices he can make. He muttered to himself reluctantly and set out on his way at the time when his fellow angels were still scattering the morning dew. Beautiful. Everyone has their part to play in the world. That morning, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi woke up earlier than usual, long before anyone else. Why? Because he knows, maybe? I don't know. And arrived at his place in the study house before dawn. The angel of death and Yoshua ben Levi stood facing one another in the dim early morning, in that hour when it is impossible to distinguish a dog from a wolf. Has he come in peace? Has he come as a wolf? Usually when we talk about the hour you can't distinguish, that often has to do with the time of day when sunrise hits, sort of progresses from when you can tell the difference between this green and this blue and this white, which is easier to distinguish, so it doesn't have to be quite as light. It's how we determine the time for early morning prayers. So a dog from a wolf, it's a very different metaphor, implying, how are these people going to interact? Is he going to be on the attack, or is Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi just going to see him as a little puppy? So it was difficult to see clearly with all the shadows, but Ben Levi's white clothing, his hair still wet from his ritual immersion, so he would have gone every morning to immerse to purify himself for the day, and the scent of soap that clung to him, which by the way is separate from the ritual immersion. So you ritually immerse and then you would bathe, because the ritual baths were dirty. They were, probably all the baths were dirty, but he had scent of soap that clung to him, all signal to the angel of death. This man knew his time had come, like he had been preparing. He knew. Not everybody knows, but this man is so righteous. Ben Levi was not a man of many words. The angel of death, too, preferred to remain silent. He simply took off his cloak and drew his knife, which he would raise above the heads of those destined to die as a sign. The look in Ben Levi's eyes confirmed that he accepted the fate that awaited him. He was not afraid. But it's just like we heard all the sages confront this. The ritual was accomplished without fanfare, meaning this ritual signal. And then with the utmost serenity, Ben Levi said to the angel of death, "Show me my place in the world to come." So he knows he has some authority here. He knows his place. As if he were engaged in a business transaction and wanted to inspect the quality of the merchandise. I want to see what I'm buying, what I'm acquiring, what I'm renting. The angel of death nodded in assent. Doesn't say a word, right? And the two set out on their way. So she paints a whole journey. Because we know there is a journey because they're going to have a conversation. Give me your knife. They passed farther and farther beyond the roads of the city and its houses, whose windows were shut like the eyelids of the dead. That's our heavy-handed friend.
Yes, yes.
The angel of death knew that this journey should be undertaken in silence, and he respected his companion's right to his own private thoughts. He was surprised when Ben Levi suddenly turned and asked him for his knife, lest you frighten me along the way. Frighten you? So Ben Levi is showing a little bit of I guess, a human side. Or maybe he's tricking him, because why would he be frightened? Maybe this is a trick. The angel of death was taken aback. He squinted his many eyes. What do you think of that?
Wow.
Little detail.
That's weird.
He squinted his many eyes to peer at Ben Levi. It's just a reminder that he's not human.
Yeah,
Right.
really.
Sounds like Elijah.
Who didn't seem frightened at all. It's not Elijah, because Elijah's another character, but
I mean, Elijah had the multi-headed, when he goes up in the fire.
the
and
chariot.
Chariot, yeah. And there are
Okay, but not
multi-character-
Elijah himself.
Not
Yeah, there are
Elijah
chariots
himself, but
with
he
different
experiences that.
different faces of animals. Yeah, he didn't seem frightened.
I think.
So why is he? So he's looking now. We know at this weird looking creature, and he's not frightened, but he's saying, "You might frighten me. Give me your knife." Perhaps because the angel had been given explicit instructions to do the sage's will, he agreed to hand over his knife. After all, he had received far stranger requests from those he had escorted in the past. Can you imagine the conversations he has with these people? Still, it was a new feeling for the angel to walk empty-handed. Without his knife, he could move more comfortably. He felt like a young angel in training, I guess, before your weapon. And even considered humming to himself as he walked. So the angel is himself unburdened.
She anthropomorphizes the angel.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
except we know that he doesn't look like a person, so we don't
True.
know, is he floating? Is he driving? Is he on wheels himself? Like, I don't know.
Well, that
And why is he like, oh, it's like he's been weighed down by these tasks. Yeah, Marilyn.
I think it enhances Ben Levi's ability to give mitzvahs to others in whatever form they take.
Oh, Ben Levi is so giving and charitable that no matter who he meets, he makes them lighter.
That's a nice,
Except
that's a
with-
nice read.
Yeah,
man.
except with his hesitancy to
read.
give the knife back.
Well, let's get there. Let's get there. Yes, he won't give the knife back later. We said last time that maybe that's about, he wants to alleviate suffering in the world. He
Okay.
doesn't want death to come back. But, oh, that's so nice. He's like a good therapist.
Yeah,
To everyone he meets.
but I think.
Yeah,
that
even
the-
this angel of death is
Well,
so,
we talked about last week, for me, the idea of give me your knife is, I want to know the time of my own death. I don't want to be surprised by it. I want to have some
yeah,
measure
he
of
wanted
control.
some autonomy.
So-
Yeah,
so
right.
I think, having control and responsibility is a weight. So the angel,
Oh, that's why the angel feels lighter.
yeah,
There's a comment.
there's
that
kind of a
Angel
role
of Death is full of
reversal.
eyes. Thank you, JewsEncyclopedia.com. A little article here about, here, we can pull it up. About mythology around the way the angel of death. The angel of the Lord, here, I'll share it here.
Yeah.
Keep it big so our friends here in the room can see it. Yeah, make it big. I don't know if you can all read that in the room. The Hamashchit is the destroyer of the Egyptian firstborn, Malach Hamashchit. So this entry, thank you, I think it was Francis. Just gives a lot of different citations of where the angel of death or the idea of some emissary of death is mentioned in the book of Samuel, the book of Job, the Mitim, and in rabbinic literature as well. One who has sinned, the angel of death cannot touch him. The angel of death receives his order from God. These are all citations from the Talmud.
It says under function.
And forms and functions. Yeah, thank you.
You got it. too?
Okay. Yeah, it is said of the angel of death that he is full of eyes. In the hour of death, he stands at the head of the departing one with a drawn sword to which clings a drop of gall. As soon as the dying man sees the angel, he is seized with a convulsion and opens his mouth, whereupon the angel throws the drop into it. This drop causes death. It turns putrid and his face becomes yellow. So that's okay. Well,
What is TAN period to Exodus?
so I see, oh, at the top.
No, when it gives a source to Exodus, like in terms.
Midrash Tanchuma at the top there, and then what I was reading further below is from Avodah Zarah 20b and Psikta de Rav Kach. These are Midrash or Talmud, all these Midrashic texts. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna stop
They're
here,
not-
and everyone
they're
there
not
has
mucked out.
the
They're-
link.
Right.
Richard wanted to say
And-
something too.
Thank you, and I just see the chat. Oh, thank you, Francis, for leading us there. Yeah, I mean, she didn't just make this up, clearly. But it's cool to see how she did her research and then threads it through the story. What was that, Richard?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or what did you want to say?
No, he wanted to say.
Well,
something.
I just wanted to say,
Ah,
in the paragraph above, where it says the angel, he asked for the night, no, show me my place in the world to come. The angel of death nodded in assent. And I noticed that assent is it's the same word, but here it means, I mean,
Ascent.
it's not what it
In the
inclined,
climb.
but it really probably meant assent, ASSENT.
Yes.
Yeah, just a typo,
Yeah.
but
Type of funny.
Yes, that's
funny typo, yeah. And it's it's just an interesting
Maybe
typo,
So I'm
she was
gonna highlight it
dictating-
on my
Maybe she
screen
was
here.
dictating it and
probably,
the computer.
Probably,
or
yeah.
whatever.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
because the angel wasn't rising, the angel was
Right.
walking,
No,
Yeah,
no, that's typo,
yeah.
but an ironic one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Close reading of our text.
it's.
You've been around too long here for our class.
Looking at too many texts.
I was gonna say,
It's
a
occupational
professional,
hazard.
occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Yes, Marilyn.
Just an aside, and I don't know if it's relevant, but with the Sephardic tradition, you have a lot of eyes.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
And
right.
Yes.
I'm wondering.
The evil
Yeah.
eye.
Right.
Yeah.
If the evil eye.
It's on the
would be-
Hamsa, sometimes
Yeah.
it's also is the
that
evil.
was fine.
So I'm just wondering if there is a connection to the angel of death.
Mhm.
Mm.
I don't know. Anyway.
I have not thought of that.
moving on.
Okay.
I'm looking to see if anyone had anything to answer. No,
Let's see.
okay. Okay, yeah, let's finish. Okay, let's see what happens. Is he gonna die? What's gonna happen?
He has to die eventually.
When they reached the wall of heaven, they stood beside a place in the wall that was a bit lower than the rest. The angel of death lifted up Ben Levi so he could peek at what lay on the other side. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi looked beyond the wall and saw the section assigned to the sages. Spacious, airy, it's like great real estate. And open on all four sides, by the way, like the tent of Abraham.
Yeah.
Just steps away was the grand tent made from the skin of the Leviathan sea monster, which had been nignaz, hidden away from the time of creation, waiting for the tzaddikim shebe'atid lavo in the world to come. With
So
the
it
righteous
was
men
not a
passing to and fro beside it. So this is what you're gonna see in the world to come, and that's where you're gonna be, Ben Levi. Ben Levi looked to both sides and then jumped suddenly over the wall. A living man in heaven. He's gonna cause a kerfuffle.
Yeah.
The angel of death, overcome with fright, grabbed him by the corner of his garment and cried out, "Come back, get out of there." Like he's gonna be caught because he shouldn't have taken him this close and he shouldn't have lifted him up and he shouldn't have let him see. Like he let himself get carried away. And he was thinking he was young and careless again. Now the boss is gonna catch him. Then Levi from the other side of the wall was still dressed in the clothing of this world, his soul still in his body. Disregarding propriety, he waved dismissively at the angel as if to say that he refused to exit. He doesn't even say anything. Just wait, what will you do to me now? He seemed to be taunting. The angel clenched his face like a baby on the verge of tears, his hands clutching the corner of Ben Levi's garment. He turned to seek help from the dispatcher at his side. The chief angel sent one of his novices to find out what had happened. The young angel came back and excitedly recounted what he had seen. Groups of angels gathered around, seating themselves atop the clouds so they could peer down at the argument that had broken out across the wall of heaven. By the way, this is what all these midrashim do. They paint these pictures of what is going on in heaven. You know, Moshe goes to the comes to the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Akiva because he had a conversation with God in heaven, and they're going up and down and up and down, and like, so she's taking her right to do that. The righteous, bored by the monotony of their pious afterlives, look on curiously, like if there's no sin and there's no temptation and there's no
entertainment
like
here.
this is getting boring already. Eventually the rumor reached the Holy One, blessed be he, who declared, okay, now there's a ruling. If Ben Levi ever asked to have one of his vows nullified, he must return. If not, then he need not return. This is the piety test. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi heard the words of the Holy One, blessed be he, and flashed a small but triumphant smile at the angel of death. I won this round.
For a few minutes. so to
The
speak.
angel of death said to him, hand over my knife. Fine, you're gonna stay there? Give me back my knife. Give me back my job. I'm going back to work. His voice was loud and petulant without any trace of respect or civility. Ben Levi ignored him. In spite of the hour, it was time for the afternoon rest. It was like nap time in heaven for everyone. I mean, that sounds great. Throngs began to assemble at the wall of heaven. It was time for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to return from the study house, because that's what they're doing too. And the chief angel did not want any more trouble. A voice from heaven called out, give back the knife, because without it, people cannot die. Something in the tone of this voice, almost maternal in its softness, calmed everyone down. I'm sorry, but I love
Yeah,
that.
That she said maternal.
She plays with gender all the
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't the bat Kohl, which is feminine, by the way,
Mhm.
bat Kohl, why shouldn't it be a feminine voice? It's the voice that calms everyone, all these men who are yelling at each other in the Knesset, yelling at each other in the Beit Midrash. This is how they think that arguments get settled, but who can yell louder and who can insist, give me back my knife? No, I won't. Quick, we have to. The important people are coming. And this maternal voice says, everybody calm down. Give it back. You know that you need to give it back. You know better.
Right.
Rabbi
Exactly.
Yeshua ben Levi threw the knife over the wall it's like a toddler, right? Like a kid. The angel of death headed back the way he had come, and a sweet afternoon rest spread across the expanse of heaven. The end.
No question that the angel of death is a male.
No question.
But not-
Yes,
Yeah,
the angel of
Well,
death
all of them are
seems to
asking-
be male.
All of them are asking
I
about
mean,
male.
I don't know if there are female angels. There's a feminine presence. There's the Shekhinah.
Well, that's Shabbat.
They're a feminine. Yes, the Shabbat queen is feminine. But the angels, they all have these male names.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Are there
Gabriel,
any?
Michael.
Becky, you would know. Did your father ever
don't-
teach you about female angels?
No, no. We weren't in that world.
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, and Raphael, Michael, these are the names of the
Gabrielle,
angels.
Ruth.
Yeah. There's no Gabriella. It's only Gabrielle.
Right. Don't ever remember that.
So she makes this really about the way he thwarts death, the way that he lives among the dead or the ill. I mean, everything that we've talked about. And yet in the end, nobody can fully thwart death.
Yeah.
Death will still operate in the world. Death will still kill the righteous and the wicked. And that's what makes life worth living, because otherwise you have a monotonous version of heaven, which already we've learned is boring.
Mhm.
The pious, like they're just
The eternal sameness.
the same, right? Yeah.
But it's interesting that according to this story, he didn't die. He was like Eliyahu Hanavi. He went up alive. In other words, his soul is in his body as it's in heaven.
It's
Yeah.
Eliyahu and it's him and it's Hanoch. I mean, I think that's
Right.
it.
Right. The
Who else
four,
died?
but he and Eliyahu were very good friends. Eliyahu used to come and learn Torah with Rabbi Yosua ben Levi. So, like
So they were in this club.
they were in this club, and the Gemara says that when he came up to heaven, Eliyahu Hanavi said to everybody, "All right, guys, make room. Ben Levi is here." In other words,
Right.
it was
Right.
like that was their, there's a
Read that
story.
one. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I missed
Yes,
that.
thank you. No, it's great. It's great.
Mm.
You talked about the Me'ara. You talked about when he wanted to see Mashiach.
No.
So
No.
there's a story that Eliyahu Hanavi saw. There was a man who was killed by a lion a couple of feet away from him, and Eliyahu Hanavi stopped coming to him for 3 days. And he went and he davened and he fasted and he said, "Please, please come back, come back." And Eliyahu Hanavi said, "It's your fault because you didn't daven enough for something like this not to happen." And Eliyahu Hanavi takes him to Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's cave, and he says to him, "When is the Mashiach coming?" And he says, "You know what? You want to know? Ask him." And he goes into the cave and he says to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, "When is the Mashiach coming?" And he looks at him and he says, "Hayom, today he's coming."
Oh.
And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is so excited. He said, "Today, really today?" And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says to him, "Hayom im tishma b'kol Hashem."
If
Yeah.
And then he
you listen to
realizes he's not
It's
coming
always
so
today.
fast.
God.
But there's always the connection between Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and Eliyahu Hanavi. It says that Eliyahu Hanavi used to come down to learn with him. So it makes sense that he would go up to heaven the same way that Eliyahu did, alive.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Becky.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
no.
love the story. We're gonna get to the cave. We're gonna get to the cave of Rabbi
Oh,
Shimon Bar
okay.
Yochai. Absolutely. I don't think she's doing that story. I don't think that's in here. I have to look
Oh,
again.
okay.
They're coming up. But yes, but he is unique. He's up there with Eliyahu, that you could enter heaven without dying. I wanted to just read the closing paragraph of Ruth Calderon in her book about the heroic presentation of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi coming close to the leopards. And she says, the message is clear. Anyone who sits amid those who are stricken with a dangerous disease holds the knife of the angel of death in his hands, as death is powerless over him. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was thus not wrong in flouting the fear of contagion and reaching out to those who were afflicted. Even in his death, he did not really die. Torah protected him, and it can only protect all those who study it. The story thus elevates the matters of illness and contagion from the physical level to the theological level, in which every person is met with the fate that he deserves. Even sickness and death, we learn, are beholden to the religious moral order. In other words, this is what we said, that assigning a theological significance gives us a little bit more of a sense of control over something we actually don't understand.
Yep.
And so it's not just willy-nilly. I mean, it's both and, right? We can't conclude that someone who got sick and died is always immoral, but we're trying to grasp at some system that will make sense out of this. Who can be protected from illness? Well, only someone as righteous as Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. I hear that Sandra.
I guess I couldn't hear the last because I was getting a hum. Even sickness and death, what did she say, is beholden to what?
The religious moral order.
Ah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the biggest gift we have is the ability to reframe, because there is an inevitability in terms of lifespan, but how you see your death is whether it's horrific or whether it's something that it's a release from suffering. So that to me,
she says, right.
that to me is, I think, is the linchpin of that. It's our ability to reframe how we see things.
And even in the moment when he thought, so when he is greeted by the angel of death and he's calm, did he think he was going to die? Or is it because he knows he's got a plan and he's not going to die?
No, he knew he was going to die, but he was
This
going to
is
choose
authentically the way that he's going to meet his death, calmly and with acceptance and being ready up early.
and dressed in the white shroud. Already.
Right, dressed
He
for
was
it.
ready.
But I still have a problem. I still have a problem with the individuals I can understand. I still have a problem with big events in history, what's happened to Jews. I can understand on an individual level, but I still can't.
That's why I'm being very careful about how I don't want that to be wrapped in a neat bow. Because Sadiq Viralo or
Shavuot, yeah.
Yeah, bad things happen to good people, good things happen to bad people. But we're trying to say this level of righteousness is what protected him. Yeah.
I wonder if the angel of death is going to have, in the future, he won't be so easy to fool, and he won't give up his knife so easily.
That's it for good. Yeah.
And
I have been.
Ben Levi kind of used up the naiveness of the angel.
So he ruined it for everybody else. There can never be another Ben Levi who's going to fool the angel of death. That's why it ended with him. It was Eliyahu, but Eliyahu was a different scenario. And it was, that's good. I like that.
We're creative.
I like that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm struck by her use of the word worthy ambivalence. Worthy ambivalence. So on one hand, they're saying, don't hang around lepers because you're going to be, you're going to catch. It's going to be contagious. And life is so important. You're allowed to disobey Shabbos rules and so on for life and so on.
Right.
On the other hand, Yeshua ben Levi, well, he's an exception. He was protected by Torah, but almost as if to say, well, she calls it worthy ambivalence. I'm going, well, which is it? Are you supposed to avoid? Well, it's kind of like almost the exception proves the rule. Nobody's a Yeshua ben Levi, so don't do what he did.
Right.
Stay. I mean, doctors.
Well, all the other rabbis are saying, don't even stand downwind from them, right?
Right.
But there is a whole field of, a line of questioning around, is it permissible to seek medical help? Or are we supposed to say, I have faith? And today that question is even more troubling, but in the ancient world where religion and science were mixed or were just separating, I remember taking a course once in undergrad and it was called Magic, Science, Religion. It was about that time in the Middle Ages when science and magic and religion were just being teased apart. So should you go to a medical doctor? What are you saying about all those amulets we've been relying on? What are you saying about prayer? Today we say, no. Yes, you have to pray. And yes, you have to go to the doctor. And you can't consider yourself a Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. But even here, I think that you're right. They're all saying he's the exception to the rule. Marilyn? Okay. Like it's don't put yourself at risk. Don't go jumping off a cliff and say, don't worry, I'm going to pray.
God will protect him, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I was waiting for one of the results of one of the scans to show if something was going to be cancerous. And the rabbi from TVDJ had called me before and he said, you can still pray. I said, yes, but it's science. It either it is or it isn't. He says, till you get the verdict, till you get what that actually say you can still pray. So it was kind of like you're saying, teasing him apart. He was kind of, you know, it was a blurry line.
It's a beautiful sentiment, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's changing what's on the page.
Right.
No.
It's praying for peace to accept and to know what to do next and what the next, you know, the next steps are. And you're still in the not knowing. Marilyn.
It introduces
Very
the
interesting.
concept of hope.
Yeah,
And hope gives you strength.
Yes.
But there's a very fine line between hope and foolishness.
Says who?
Don't
Says who?
no, don't say I'm hopeful. I'm gonna go in without my PPE equipment.
No, you're hopeful and you
And
go
Rabbi
in
Yeshua
with
ben
your
Levi is taking his
PPE.
life in his hands.
Put it mildly.
It also reminds me of a friend of mine who's a physician, and he was making a comment about Huskies. And towards the end of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, Huskies had a sign on their door saying, you can choose to wear a mask, not wear a mask, but don't bother the staff, don't bother other people who are not wearing a mask. So
Right.
they were basically saying, our staff isn't wearing masks, don't bug them,
Right.
you know. And my friend who's a physician said, that's not kosher. I can't go to Huskies now. It's not kosher anymore.
Yeah.
Because of he considered.
Their cavalier attitude.
Exactly.
I mean, the anti-vax movement and,
Okay.
and all these things were there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna leave that
Yeah.
aside. But that is where people conflate kashrut with other values. They might say, I'm not gonna eat that hechsher, or I'm not gonna go to that restaurant because I know those employees are abused or not, you know, not paid fairly. I'm not gonna eat that meat because even though it's slaughtered kosher, it's not, we talked about this with, right? It's not, the animals don't have a pleasant life. They're not treated well. So is it following all my values? Okay, we're gonna
Subject to
pause.
interpretation, right?
I am not here next week. It's a quick trip to the States. And the week after, I'm having in the morning, I'm speaking downtown at a McGill event, whatever, I'm on a panel, and I'm trying to figure out if I would get back in time. Would it be possible on the 22nd, if I changed our class start time to 11:30? I think that would allow me to not have to cancel the class. I will send out myriads of emails and still someone will show up at 11 if I do that.
Stress
But
about it.
I
What-
think, because I don't want to cancel 2 weeks in a row. I would have to cancel 2 in a row.
It's okay by me.
So if I do 11:30,
Yes.
Yeah,
is that cool?
Yeah.
yes, I think
Okay.
that would be
Okay.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
So next week we're off. The week after will be 11:30. Then we'll only have one more week before Pesach. We'll have a Pesach break.
Believe it? How soon?
It always comes 1 month after Purim.
Yeah.
But every
Yeah.
year.
Too close,
Every year.
too close.